Hi Team DPS, welcome to this very special edition of DPS Snapshots. I'm your host, Natalie Brigham. Normally on our podcast, we give you the top 5 stories you need to know for the week, but we're spicing it up this time around. We have with us today Miss Katia Lopez. Monday through Friday, she's a special education teacher at Swansea Elementary, but when she's not in the classroom, she has another name, Miss Denver. Hi Katia, welcome to our show.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
We're excited to have you on. We have some questions for you because our audience is dying to know the story behind Miss Denver. What inspired you to be both a teacher and participate in the Miss America organization?
Yeah, I think that both of them really connect together because I've been passionate about educational equity for pretty much as long as I remember. When I was a little girl, the story I tell everybody when they ask, is when I was little, I fell in love with theater. I was an only child. I came from a pretty tumultuous familial relationship. There was a lot of, negativity there. And so I was pretty shy and sheltered. And so my mom put me in a bunch of different things to see what would stick. And the thing that really stuck with me was performance and theater. And so she put me in a play, The Wizard of Oz, and she was like, you're probably going to be a tree or a munchkin, it's your first time. And I came home and I was like, oh, Mommy, I got Dorothy. And she was really excited about that. And I really got into it. I memorized all my lines and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. 4-year-old me was obsessed. But pretty much immediately after that, my parents finally ended up getting divorced and I moved to the border of Texas and Mexico. I lived about 5 minutes from Mexico. And I wasn't able to be in a play for almost 10 years because there was no access at school. And so I really, growing up and getting older, I kind of reflected on that and was like, there's so much inequity around that. Because why are, people on the border of Mexico, predominantly people of color, or in rural areas or, in any other marginalized area, not getting access to this education? So in college, I really, became more active as an advocate for arts equity and arts education. And so I became originally Miss Carrollton, then Miss San Antonio, and now I'm here in Colorado, Miss Denver. And part of that journey to becoming a teacher here and moving to Colorado is actually, I was talking to the person who inspired me to compete in the first place, Avery Bishop. She was Miss Texas, I think 3 years ago. She's second runner-up at Miss America. And I was talking to her and we were having coffee. And I was like, I really don't know what I want to do before I go to graduate school. I want to do something that's really impactful. And she was like, oh, well, you should do Teach for America because you love education, you are active about equity, and it's a really good way to, spend a couple of years doing something meaningful to you in a place that you care about. And so I signed up, I got accepted to Teach for America, and I got relocated here. And I've been having a great time, pursuing equity through the arts as Miss Denver, but also in everyday classrooms as, myself as Miss Kat. So, yeah.
That sounds like you have a full plate.
A little bit.
How do you balance it all? How are you Miss Denver while still having a full-time job?
It takes a lot of perseverance and organizational skills for sure. I have 3 of those. I don't know if you've ever seen them, those desk calendars that you put on your desk. I have one on my table at school, on my desk at home, and then also one in my car for reference, because I have so much stuff going on and I have to, schedule everything and remember everything I have to do. But a lot of it is just, developing self-care and mental fortitude, because a really big part of it is, I can use the 24 hours in my day, but how can I, keep that sustainable and not feel burnt out? Because, part of teaching is it's a pretty rigorous job. And so going home on the weekends and relaxing would be great, but I'm spending my weekends pretty busy. So finding ways to build in those times for self-care, finding ways to build in that time for myself or for my family or for my friends has been really important this year. So just a very, very detailed calendar that even includes grocery shopping, naps, all of the things. So that's kind of how I maintain it.
What does your typical schedule look like? I imagine being at an elementary school, you're starting pretty early in the day, and then if you have any after school activities, it runs pretty late.
Yeah. So going on an everyday weekday, kind of what my schedule looks like. I'm not much of a morning person. Lately, I have been trying to maximize my time. So depending on the day, I might wake up early to go to the gym. I might not. But then I go to work, full, 7 to 4, 8 to 4 at work. Afterwards, I'll go home. I will try to spend some self-care time, either walking my dog, hanging out with my roommates, or gardening. I have a very extensive garden.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
And then I usually do, an hour to 2 hours of pageant prep. Either interview practice, modeling practice, running through my talent. I'll probably do that for an hour and a half a day. And then after that, whatever lesson plans I need to do for work, eat dinner. And then I'm also studying for the LSAT. So then I study for the LSAT from 10 to midnight, and then I go to sleep.
Oh my
so
gosh.
That's kind of what my schedule looks like on a day-to-day.
We need to add a few more things to your title. Formerly Dorothy, future lawyer. My goodness.
There's a lot of things going on for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is the most rewarding part about being both a teacher and competing in Miss America?
I think having the facts that I'm doing something actively to contribute. I think really what's important to me is making strides towards that equity. Seeing something I'm passionate about and seeing, there's something that needs to be fixed, but then actually being proactive and being the person to do the fixing. Yeah. I think that's really helped me feel like I'm contributing to my community. I'm using my resources to promote something I really care about, because, it truly is something so important to me. So, through all the work, through all of the tired days and everything, I think really being able to know that I'm trying my best to contribute and to make the world a better place is something that's really, really rewarding to me.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the biggest misconception about pageantry? Because you're talking about doing all this good in the world, and I feel like a lot of people could write it off as just a frivolous activity.
I get that so often, especially, coming to a state as Colorado. I'm originally from Texas, and pageants are a lot bigger in Texas. So coming to Colorado, where it's a little more stigmatized, a little less understood, I really think the idea that it's a beauty contest is this very frivolous thing that I think is really outdated. Miss America and the Miss America organization really tries to, advertise itself as an opportunity, the Miss America opportunity, an opportunity to use a year as a year of service, an opportunity to be a leader for a year, right? Every year you get that crown and sash, it's an opportunity to be more than something else, right? And so I really think it's an organization meant to empower women. And also something I always try to tell people is the fact that, it's also a scholarship organization, the scholarship competition. The money that we win and the proceeds we get through these competitions, I've been lucky to win quite a bit of money through my years competing in the Miss America opportunity. I've never been given that in cash. That's always been either saved up for student tuition or for loans. They don't give you that money and tell you to spend it however you want. Very strict rules about giving it to educational purposes. So, making sure that people realize it is for educational benefit. It is for elevating women. It is for making women, it's a professional development organization. So making sure people realize it's not just a beauty competition is really important.
Yeah. I feel like that almost leads perfectly into this next question.
Yeah.
How do you define confidence, and what advice do you have for students who are trying to build their own?
Very recently, I shared on my own social media my journey within the Miss America organization in regards to one area of competition, fitness. Fitness was not something that was around when I first signed up. At first, it was just, your evening gown, your interview, your talent, and an onstage question. When they introduced fitness, I thought about dropping out of Miss Texas because I really, had struggled with years with pretty significant body dysmorphia. And so I used this as an opportunity to, grow myself and even to share my presence online. So I went from at the beginning of my journey with Miss America, someone who would pretend to go to the gym and hide in my car for an hour just to look like I was being productive, to now being able to go to fitness classes and to go on a stage in, athleisure clothing and model around. And so it's really been just kind of taking that initial step, because for years I was so scared to take that step to help boost up my confidence, and really being like, fine, this is the first day I'm going to go into that gym. This is the first day I'm going to go into that yoga class. That really helped me. And so for students who are struggling with that, kind of finding those, tangible action points that you can do. If you're somebody who has negative self-talk, I have students like this in my own classroom. If you catch yourself doing negative self-talk, give yourself one affirmation, or even finding someone trusted to talk to you about. I've found comfort sharing my story with social media. Maybe a student can do that with their friends, their families, or a trusted adult.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I'm in a DPS Spanish class right now, and something that my teacher talks about all the time is you just have to practice. And if you fail, that's okay, but it's like the voice in your head afterwards. What are you saying to yourself to make sure that like you continue to do it? Mm-hmm. It's like you can only get better by practicing. And so if you're kicking yourself because you didn't conjugate correctly or you forgot a word, like while you were talking to someone who's speaking a different language than you, it's like, how do you tell yourself that it's okay, that you're still safe? Like you can keep doing this. Mm-hmm. And it all comes down to positive self-talk. So I feel like hearing you say that as a student myself, it rings true.
Yeah, finding that space to be vulnerable with yourself for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have something that either on stage or in the classroom makes you feel confident immediately?
Ooh, I'm trying to think. Weirdly, being in heels makes me feel really confident.
I love that for you.
I'm already pretty tall. I'm about 5'8". But when I have a heel on, I feel so powerful. Even at school, I'm always on the move, I'm always running, so I'm not out here wearing stilettos. But, I love a good wedged sandal. And having that elevation, I don't know, something about it makes me feel very collected and very grounded. And I stand a little bit taller.
Yeah.
So I love wearing a pair of heels. But besides that, just I think really being organized. I think something for me when I'm preparing for Miss America or Miss Colorado, or even for my classroom, repetition and feeling prepared when I enter the room, right? If I'm going into Miss Colorado modeling, I want to have practiced enough to where I'm not thinking about it. I'm just doing the muscle memory. When I'm walking into my classroom, I want my lesson plans to be developed, so I'm not stressing out about what to do next, and I'm not, having that doubt. So really going in with a plan and being prepared is what helps me feel the most comfortable and ready for the next step.
Yeah. I would love to talk about your time in the classroom. Mm-hmm. How are you bringing art equity to your room?
Yeah, I love this question. So I teach special education. So I teach a lot of kids with differentiated needs, differentiated goals, and, we're working towards bridging those gaps so that they can be back, at grade level for a lot of these students. So one of the best things I love to do, especially with my younger kiddos, is multi-sensory activities that are always typically connected to art. There's so much data that proves that, having these multi-sensory, artistic, creative ways of learning boost kids' ability to recognize things. So when I take kids into the classroom and I'm building up letter recognition, if we have finger paints and we're tracing it on paper, that's a way for them to learn. If we have a box of sand and they're tracing things, if we have shaving cream, that was a crazy day, and we're using that. Those are all multimodal, multi-sensory ways of building that up. I have a group of kids who is really low energy, and I had talked to our school's occupational therapist, and I'd been like, what are some ways I can get this group more engaged? And she said, start your day off with some gross motor movement. And so now when they come in, we do theater warm-ups. I make them do a lion face. I make them do a lemon face, like they're super tight, like they just had a sour lemon. I make them do shake-offs. And every day they're into it. Every day they come in and they're like, Miss Kat, can we do lion face? So now they've gotten really into it. So finding what different strategies I already have as my background as a creative and as an artist, and applying that to my each unique group and based on their need has been really, really amazing. And I've loved doing it so far this year.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in your classroom and see the lion face and the lemon face.
It's a fun time for sure.
Yeah. How would you recommend other teachers incorporate theater work or art equity into their own classroom?
I think a really good way at the beginning of the year is finding a couple of games that are incorporating art or creativity or movement into your classroom. When I was in college, I took this arts education class, and we, at the end of the year, got to develop like a list of like 200 different multimodal games for different things. Whether it be, the beginning of the year getting to know kids, whether it be a math game, whether it be, a science game, and have them connected back to theater, connected back to art. So I think, finding research to do those types of things, because it's a way to have the kids engage, you're checking for understanding, but it's also fun. And the kids, are excited about it. And it's not just, your everyday exit ticket. Making, your math check-in with a soccer ball, so much more fun, right? Doing it through a dance move or a song to remember something is so much more fun. So just finding ways that fit your classroom that are more engaging, because it's going to have the kids be engaged. They're going to remember it more because they're using more of their body. That's really my biggest advice.
Yeah. They'll go home, they'll tell their guardian, guess what we did in class
Exactly.
today?
They're never going to forget it.
Yeah, I love that. What do you wish more people knew about special education teachers?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think for me, the idea that there's so much that goes into it aside from just the classroom. For our students who have disabilities and have higher needs, we have all of the paperwork, right? All of the meetings. We also are crafting the accommodations, crafting the modifications, working with the whole IEP team all year. Almost every day at school, I'm reaching out to the school psychologist. I'm reaching out to the speech therapists. I'm reaching out to the social workers so we can collaborate on kids' needs, right? Whether it be academically, social, emotionally, anything really. Because I really see, the ESS department as a big team, and it's so much collaboration. So I really think, it's not just the idea of I'm pulling out your kid to teach them how to read. It's I'm pulling out your kids so that they can, succeed and bridge those gaps that they might have or perceive that they have because they have a disability. So there's so much to it besides just pulling a kid out for reading.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you could bring one part of your Miss Denver experience to every school in the district, what would that look like?
It's always been a dream of mine. And, if I win Miss Colorado, this is something I really want to bring to the district is, having a developed school program that I can bring to every school. I've developed 2 different programs, one aimed towards teachers as a professional development program and one aimed towards students. So one for teachers is essentially like a workshop station-based thing where, kind of like your question earlier, I'm teaching different tangible ways to incorporate art into your classroom. Whether it be the infamous spaghetti tower, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, where you put the spaghetti noodles and you stack them with the marshmallows and you're trying to build a tower to see what shapes are stable. It's a classic, everyone loves it. Or to, doing a type of interactive science game that has arts incorporated into it. The other program I would love to bring is my student program. I have developed a student program where I go to different elementary schools and read a book and talk about how we can use art and use music specifically as a way to harness our feelings and how to have a safe emotional outlet. Especially as a special education teacher, teaching kids those proper coping skills and how to have a safe emotional outlet is so important. So I think being able to bring those 2 things to different schools and showing them what I know and giving them my tools is something I'm really passionate about doing.
Yeah, I think also students and teachers alike would have such fun with it too.
Of course I'd sing too, but that's beside the point.
I was going to say, I know you're a singer yourself, and we'll get to that. I have a question specifically about that later on.
Okay.
But how has singing helped you harness your emotional processing?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I came from a pretty tumultuous background. My parents got divorced multiple times. I moved around a lot. I went to 5 elementary schools, I think, and 2 or 3 middle schools. So I had a pretty rocky, unstable childhood. And I really think performance and singing and acting and music really helped me do that because it was almost like this surreal moment of kind of leaving all of my emotional burdens behind and being something, like heightening, reality. And one of the things I love about theater and the reason I pursued it after high school is the fact that it really does have this ability to transform people and kind of take them away from their feelings, right? You know, no matter who you are, you're going to cry in the first 10 minutes of Up. That's just what's going to happen,
So
right?
true.
And so there's these abilities from all this different media, whether it be theater, whether it be film, to, you know, transport people from their problems and get hyper fixated on this thing. So I really think that I've really, you know, used that for myself too, is that transformative property, to use it kind of as a way to, you know, see other people and be empathetic and use it kind of as this point of view. So I've, you know, had a passion for performance and music my whole life, and it's been really helpful to me.
Yeah, and can you tell me about your theater involvement here in Colorado?
Yeah, so I have been so lucky to work with Family Theater Company based here in Denver. They are the longest running theater company in the entire country that is a disability affirming theater company. So that means they primarily work with people who identify as having a disability. This past year, I got to be an understudy in their production of Putnam 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. It's a very long name.
Yes.
But it was my first show I did since I moved here in Denver, and I had such a blast. I've loved working with them, and I hope, you know, as Miss Denver and as Miss Colorado, I can continue to work with that theater company more, because the entire artistic and production team, they're just wonderful people, really equity-minded. I love working with them.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Can you tell me what's next for you with the Miss America organization?
Yes, so Miss Colorado is coming up in about 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks.
So soon.
I know, it's very exciting. The competition will be held between June 9th through June 14th or 13th. You know, tickets are already on sale, so if anyone wants to have tickets to watch, it's happening at the University of Denver right here.
Wow.
So it'll be really fun, really exciting. There's 2 days of preliminaries, then finals. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm in full preparation mode right now.
Yeah. Do you have a specific category that you're most excited for?
Definitely my favorites are interview. I love, you know, getting to talk about my experiences with the judges and showing them a part of me, and also talent. I'm a big fan of talent, you know, I'm a performer, I'm a musician, so getting to show them what I'm passionate about on the stage is awesome. So fun.
And can you tell me about your previous pageantry experience? Because I know this isn't the first title that you've held.
No, it's not. I definitely don't consider myself like one of those like pageant girls who's been competing since I was little or anything.
You're not a toddler in tiara.
I'm not a toddler in tiaras, no honey boo boo. But I started competing 2 years before this year in Miss Texas. I first was Miss Carrollton, and I was lucky enough to be in the top 12 at Miss Texas that year. Wow. And then this past year, I was the 99th, or was I the 100? No, I was the 101st Miss San Antonio.
Wow.
So that was amazing. Miss San Antonio is one of the most busy local organizations in the entire country, you know, because there's this week-long party, literally a fiesta in San Antonio called Fiesta, dedicated to the Alamo. And so there you have I'd say over 50 to 100 appearances in those 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that year at Miss Texas, I was lucky enough to win both an interview award and a talent award. So I was really excited to win non-finalist interview and talent that year. So this will be my 3rd year competing, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Well, we are rooting you on.
Thank you.
And very excited to see what happens.
I'm very excited. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, well, before we wrap up, I have a few rapid fire style questions
I'm ready.
Okay. Who are some of the most famous people you've met while participating in the Miss America organization?
Ooh, I've met a few Miss Americas, so that's really cool. I got to meet Emma Broyle. She was Miss America, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. Now she's dating Corbin Carroll. If anyone knows baseball, he's pretty famous, so very cool. Let's see, who else have I gotten to meet? I've gotten to meet several actors before. I know, for example, I know I didn't get to meet this person, but someone I know, Miss Texas, got to meet. She got to meet Arden Cho, who was in Teen Wolf, one of the actors in Teen Wolf. I personally was obsessed because I love Teen Wolf, so I was very hyped about that. I've gotten to meet several different like pageant contenders, so like pretty much all the states, you know, Miss California, Miss Texas, you know, Miss Colorado. When Miss Colorado 2 years ago was Miss America. Wow. So getting to meet all of these really cool, awesome people. But yeah, that's kind of a few of the people I've gotten to meet.
I love that. Okay, what is harder? Answering to a panel of judges in front of thousands of people or calming down students after recess?
Ooh, I think the most stressful one is probably calming students after recess, because if I make a flub, I made a flub. If the kids aren't calm, I'm going to have to suffer the consequences all afternoon. So
all day long.
Exactly.
Okay, the one that I've been waiting to ask you, what's a song that's been stuck in your head lately, and would you be willing to sing a few lines?
Oh my gosh, let me think. I guess probably my talent song from Miss Colorado, but I'm totally...
Can you reveal what your talent song
Yeah, I'm
is?
totally fine revealing my talent song. I'm doing Don't Rain on My Parade from Funny Girl. Very, very big, powerful song, red dress moment, but yeah.
Would you be willing to sing a few lines?
Oh yeah, I totally can. It might be a little loud, but
okay.
Let me think. Let me see. Hey, Mr. Onstein, here I am. There you go. It's a little sneak peek.
If we can like cue applause.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Well, on that note, we'll stop there.
Perfect.
But thank you so much for joining us for this very special edition episode. This is our first video recording episode, so we're so happy to have you here. And we're wishing you the best of luck as you compete in your competition in June.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome, getting to be here. I hope, everyone online got to enjoy, my rambling about being Miss Cat and Miss Denver. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
We loved it. I'll speak on behalf of our audience. We loved it. We loved it.
Thank you.
Yes. And to our viewers, we're wishing you both a safe and relaxing summer. We know it's well-deserved. So thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And if you wouldn't mind, please like and subscribe to our show so that way you never miss an episode. We'll be taking a recess for the summer, but when we come back, we won't want you missing our first fall episodes. And as always, thank you so much to the external team for their help in producing this week's episode. Have a great summer, Team DPS. We'll see you next episode.